we're going to talk sales. We're going to talk sales because it's very challenging for a company of any size to build a scalable, repeatable, and efficient sales process. Our guests in the panel are Carmen Sebe, currently the partner of Jacquard Ventures. Here she is. And Manuel Heilmann, the Director of Global Sales of Cleverbridge. Both our panelists have built sales processes from different positions at huge companies. Nevertheless, the conversation will be moderated by Xenia Munteanu, the founder and CEO of Planable. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So as Irina mentioned, I'm Xenia, and I'm a startup founder. And for the last 3 years, I met and spoke with other fellow startup founders. And there is one topic that always comes up. And that's the fact that startups are really, really struggling with sales. And there's a lot of reasons why. Maybe because startup founders rarely have very strong sales skills. Maybe because it's just really hard to build repeatable sales cycles. And also, it's really hard for us as startup founders to build a sales department. So today, I am super excited to seek advice from Manuel and Carmen on this topic. They have a lot of experience in this field, so I'm really excited to get to the heart of what it means and how to build a sales process and how to improve on it. So that said, let's start with Carmen over here. B2B sales are especially complicated because you need to navigate complex organizations. Sometimes there's multiple levels of people that you need to convince. So that said, how do you see a simple sales process for a B2B startup company?
That's a complicated question. So first of all, I've done sales. So I've been CEO of ePayment and Avangate. So I've done sales for startups, and I grew a company from 0 to something. So, and I can talk about sales because it's my area, let's say. But talking about startups, so when you are a very small company and you don't have a lot of salespeople actually you don't have any salespeople initially. It's just the CEO that usually is doing the sales part.
And fundraising and everything else.
Exactly. So they are doing all this stuff. The process that he's using is like, okay, I have to make a sale, so I have to make some money, so it doesn't matter. But at some point, they will get the fundraising and they will get 1 or 2 sales persons to help with making revenue. In this point, the idea is because what's a sales process is to have some steps that a salesperson would use in order to make repeatable sales. That's the sales process. And usually you start with prospecting, which sounds very big, but you are looking around who can buy your product, which is not perfect at this point, and you just don't think that anybody will buy it. But anyway, you are looking around. I'm talking about B2B sales, and that means that you have to sell into a company that has different departments. The first thing you have to look at to whom am I selling in that organization. Is the CEO, is the marketing department, the marketing manager, is the CTO. So depending on my product, I will have to find that person that would actually listen, have a need for my product. Or they don't think that they have a need. It depends on the product. But after you're looking at that person, there are a lot of tools for prospecting, and a good salesperson in this moment, they do their research. And they found the list of companies that might be interested in that product, and also the persons that might, the positions, let's say, that might be worth contacting. So this is the first step. The second step, it's obviously the contact. Now, in my opinion, that's the hardest one, because you have to talk with somebody that doesn't want to talk to you, and you have to make it happen. Now, my advice here is to start with that person that can be referred to you somehow. So you have a friend that knows a friend that can introduce you to that person, because this is you have more, let's say, chances to be accepted for.
It's more warm.
It's a warm introduction, exactly. So this would be the first step. Otherwise, make like cold contacting. You've seen in the previous presentation, LinkedIn, whatever, just cold email. The only issue here is don't get upset, don't get frustrated, just go on and on and on until they receive you, because you'll receive a lot of no's. So it's no, because from my position as a CEO after we made money, it's like I even don't look at that emails of cold emails in your inbox telling you something that you actually don't need. If you need it, that's something else. So right now I'm talking about an outbound process. I will tell you about the inbound process. This is outbound, when the salesperson is going out. So it's prospecting, then contacting, and then it's what usually it's called the demo, but it's not a demo. The meeting itself, it's a discovery meeting. So that's the most important thing, I think. When you actually meet the client, don't talk too much. Listen to their problems. What is their problem? What they want to solve. This is extremely important. Don't talk too much, just listen, take notes, and then come back with, this is the solution, this is what we can offer, not necessarily an offer as in pricing, just presenting your solution to that problem. But it's important to listen and to create a connection to that person. And first of all, find out if that is the right person to sell to that has the problem. Now, as you set a connection to your sales, your buyer, then it's indeed, you can find out that you need to convince other colleagues, so more demo, technical demonstration, etc., etc. This is the easiest part, because it's the part where they need your product, they want you, you make them an offer, you negotiate. This is a continuous sales, so you move them on the funnel up. And then you go to another very, very important part, which is the closing. And this is as hard as the connection, because you will find out that you've done everything okay, and you don't close. You actually don't get that signature on the contract. And you have to set a limit until you are waiting for that contract and to push for that contract. And this is not an easy job. It's a talent. That's why salespeople are paid so much, because they have to get the signature on the contract. You will see that you make a lot of work and the contract doesn't get signed. So you have to set that limit. That will be the process of prospecting, contacting, discovering all the negotiation part and the closing. That's for outbound, when you don't know who's there. And on the other part, on the inbound, when you are lucky enough that somebody looks for your product, and they come to you, they write an email. It's more or less the same, obviously, not the contacting, the prospecting part, but pay attention that in this case, the client has done his homework, and they know exactly what they want, and they know what the competition is, they know what the pricing is so you have to be very crisp on your pitching, let's say.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of interesting points there around the sales meeting as well. So I wanted to ask Manuel, how do you go from having a sales process in place to improving it? How do you measure and how do you figure out where you need to improve? And if you also have any tips on having a really great sales meeting? Sales meeting?
Sales meetings. My team is here, so they can answer the question. Yeah, so I've been, about my person, I've been in sales leadership positions for 16, 17 years. Carmen actually was one of my first clients a long time ago. Later she became a competitor. So we have a long joint history. And
frenemies.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we worked in the same industry, so I can relate to a lot of what she's saying. So when it comes to sales processes, it's first of all, or sales process in general, I mean, it starts with outbound reach. You need to reach out to potential clients either through marketing, through sales, or in a perfect world, through both. I know a lot of SaaS companies dream about a 100% self-service sales process, so they don't have to lift a finger and sales is just coming in.
With 1K contracts, right?
Yeah. This is kind of the perfect business model. Doesn't happen a lot. So in most cases, you need marketing and you need, at some point, you need salespeople for a SaaS business or any type of business. And so then you have to look at your revenue goal. So if you have a revenue goal of 1 million, then the question is how much do you need in your pipeline to achieve that number? And when you start with stage 1, which is prospecting stage, that's you have to assume that 1 out of 10 prospects is going to close. So you will get 9 no's. And so this gives you a number, how many deals you need in your pipeline. So when you look at across all stages, all sales stages, typically in the B2B space, you have a close ratio of 20 to 30%. So in order to close, or in order to get to 1 million in revenue, you need a pipeline of 3 to 5 million on a permanent basis. So that gives you an idea, the close ratio as well as a revenue goal. How many salespeople do you actually need? Assuming that a sales rep can handle between 10 and 30 prospects at the same time, depending on sales cycle. A lot of companies I saw here have a rather short sales cycle of maybe 3 to 6 months. In our world, we had sales cycles of sometimes 2-3 years. So in that case, you have a different sales process. But most companies here don't have to deal with such kind of sales cycle. Then the question about the sales meeting. Thanks for asking questions, by the way, that were not on the list that you sent me.
Surprise, surprise.
Nice. A successful sales meeting. So we, what I and now my team can interrupt me. What I want the team to come up with a number that they believe they can achieve, because I can tell them your quota is 1 million per year per rep, but it's not their quota, it's just a quota that I give them. So asking them for the number that they believe they can achieve will create a greater sense of ownership and accountability. Then also gives them the opportunity to come up with a business plan, how they want to achieve that number. So I recently went to Asia to meet our Asian team 2 weeks ago, and I asked them to show me a business plan for next year. So this is your current pipeline. What is the number you think you can achieve, and how do you get there? And so they presented a plan, the pipeline, milestones, by when they want to reach certain pipeline goals, as well as markets they want to go after. But then they also ask for support. So they have specific items that they ask for, and they ask for my help, for the help of the headquarters. And so yeah, it's really sales meetings. They, it shouldn't be a sales leader talking all the time, hammering the team. It should be really coming from the team, so that they create a sense of ownership and accountability.
Got it. So I'll jump quickly into another question that I had for you later on about building a sales team, because you mentioned your team. So when you're, just you, the founders, how do you start? When do you think is the best moment to start building a sales team, and what type of people you should be searching for?
So I had a startup myself here in Romania a few years ago, and we closed the first deals. That was just the core team, and then later on we hired 1 or 2 sales reps. It really depends on, of course, of your funding. It depends on your funding situation, but then also depends on sales cycles. How many deals do you need to close? If you need to close a lot of smaller deals with short sales cycles, it might be tough for the CEO to go after all these deals himself, besides funding, besides cleaning the coffee machine and all the stuff I did in my spare time. So I'd say it depends on the circumstances. When I look for salespeople, I don't look for the typical sales rep. You find millions of sales reps and they jump from job to job. I look for people that I remember the next day. So when I work with our HR department and we interview people and they ask me next day, so what do you think? And I said, who are you talking about? Then that's basically the answer. But people that I remember, they have a shot, and they don't have to come from sales. So I like working with project managers. I like working with I've seen finance people being very successful in sales. I think it's something about the personality of the person. Do they have something that people want to talk to? Do they have a network in the industry? Do they have industry expertise? Do they have integrity? These are the things you cannot teach. I cannot teach somebody integrity. I cannot teach somebody industry expertise or a network. Either they have it or they don't. What I can teach is how to sell. And I'd argue that almost anybody can sell if they really want to. And so I really look for people that are maybe outside of the box, so not a typical sales rep.
And they should be really good listeners, as Carmen mentioned before.
Right, and typically project managers are very good listeners, so that's a,
so
that's a good
there you
one.
Go.
Finance people sometimes depends. But yeah, I've worked with people from all kinds of departments, and when I saw the opportunity, the potential, then I approached them and say, hey, why don't you think about a career in sales? And they said, "Ooh, me?" And I think, I think you have everything you need to be successful. And I think it has been very rewarding for both sides.
Yeah. So you mentioned before the size of the contract. So I wanted to ask you, Carmen, how do you see the key differences between selling, let's say, a 10K contract and a 100K contract? How is the process different?
I don't think it's different. It's, depending on the product, maybe it's longer. Actually, both are pretty high, 10K and 100K.
Per year, let's say. Right?
Yeah, let's assume that per year it's true. But anyway, probably the sales cycle, it's a little bit longer for the bigger check. And the person you are talking to are different, because some departments might have budgets to spend 10K, but not 100K. So probably you'll have to discuss with more up in the company at higher level and with more persons. What I think it's the difference is not in the sales process, but mostly in the services around it. Because on 100K, you won't sell only the product. You for sure will be selling some services of implementation, support, exactly, SLAs, things that startups are not ready yet, but they might be forced to do. So with that contract, I'm saying. So probably the biggest difference is exactly this one in the services and support around a bigger check than in the smaller one. Not the process. The process is longer, but essentially it's the same.
So talking about being forced to do things, we were chatting before the panel about the fact that as a sales department in a startup, as a sales team in a startup, you need to be careful what you're selling because the relationship with the other department is very crucial. You're selling something and then you go to your engineers and, hey! So what points of views do you have on that?
Exactly, it's something extremely common, and I think it's you'll see in all the technology companies. Salespeople are selling what they don't have, but they kind of imagine that can be done, and they go to the client, and the client, can you do that in pink? And say, yeah, why not? And they come back, can we do that in pink? Oh my God, and I have some colleagues here that know what I'm talking about. It's like, how long it will take? I don't know, half a year or so, and it's like a battle between the technical departments of the R&D department and the salespeople. They are forced. I can relate to the salespeople. So you want that contract. It's something that it's almost signed, and they just want it in pink. It's so easy. What's the problem? And then somehow you reach an agreement. With the dev department.
Should you include the department somehow in the process? How can you avoid these types of miscommunications?
It's not avoidable.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid. I mean, at some point, once you reach a certain size, you have a sales engineer on the team, and they're usually the link between sales and the development team, so that makes it a lot easier. So, I mean, the company where I'm at today, we have sales engineers, so it makes it a lot easier. It's a larger sales team. But when you have a startup, then you don't have a sales engineer. And as Carmen said, you have sales reps, they just want to be successful, they want the best for the company. And so yeah, you cannot avoid these situations. Of course, experience helps, so when the CEO gets involved, the CEO hopefully has a better judgment about what is possible or not. But the sales rep may not have this experience. So it's going to happen. I don't think there's a way to avoid it. I think communication is important, involving the development team. But sometimes the sales rep needs to make a call when they sit with a client, and you cannot just go back and forth with 25 people. They have to make a call and take a risk. This is why they get paid so much. They have to take a risk. Go home, get beaten up, and then find a solution. This is how it works in sales.
That's really interesting. Well, I hope startups get to that point. That's not one of the worst problems to have.
No.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask is, once you have this framework and process in place around sales, how do you build an infrastructure for that? What kind of tools are you using to set up the entire process? So it's Salesforce, I assume.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we have been using Salesforce in most companies I've worked for. And I say unfortunately because Salesforce used to be state of the art, and in many cases it still is, because there's a lot of integrations, all kinds of tools, but it's also an overkill in terms of functionality, in terms of cost for a startup. So I recommend startups to look for more lightweight solutions, cheaper, easier to use, user-friendlier. Solutions like Base, Sugar CRM, they're pretty inexpensive and fun to use. Because you don't want sales reps to spend half of their time on managing a CRM system. You want them to be in the field, so it has to be easy, it has to be mobile, and also fun. Sales reps, they like tools that are fun to use. Besides Salesforce or a CRM system, you need professional video conferencing systems. I know a lot of startups rely on Skype and Hangout. I'm not a big fan of it because they're not perceived as very professional. So investing a little bit of money, they're not very expensive, but investing some money in a professional.
Like Zoom or?
Zoom, yeah. I mean, we use Zoom at Cleverbridge, for instance. Great tool because it also gives you internal chat capabilities, so it facilitates collaboration and maybe avoids some situation where the sales rep sells something that we cannot support. But yeah, Zoom is a great solution. It's not very expensive and very reliable. We also use, we recently started using, in my team may roll their eyes now, but we started using Gel for daily stand-up.
Which one, sorry?
Gel.com. So it's a stand-up tool which is very useful for a global team. We have a very global team with sales reps in the US and Asia and Europe and Russia. And so it gives an opportunity to share experiences, to share accomplishments, to share successes, but also to share failures. Because I think it's also very important because the team learns from failures, and I think it's important to share failures, what went wrong and what can we do better next time. And what I'm trying to achieve with my team is that we embrace failure, we admit failure, including the leadership, because this is the best way to learn. And that's why we use Gel as a tool, and has been proven to be very effective, and most people on my team like it.
That makes really good sense, because as a sales rep, you get so many no's all the time. It's really important to kind of share all those insights together and have some kind of team support. So totally get that. So besides tool, what kind of other resources or materials would the sales team need? Carmen, for example, as a marketing department or as any other department, what kind of materials can they give the sales team to support them in their processes?
Well, references for clients, for example, which are important, case studies, testimonials, this kind of stuff. Also, when the company is a little bit bigger, there are training sessions on the product, which should be done because they should know the new features or the product or whatever. So they will be able to discuss with the client. Also, some meetings, sort of like a sales kickoff, which is something that shares experience between countries, between sales departments in different countries, or if it's that's the situation. So along this line, I think they would need.
I wanted to also circle back to another question that we had, we briefly discussed in our panel about building a sales team. So I read a report recently that said that hiring salespeople is actually more difficult than engineers for a startup. So do you guys have any insights on how to convince really good salespeople, really good sales leaders to join your startup team when you're very early on? Besides options.
Options is an important one. Actually, I'm not sure it's the most important one. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if options is the most important one, but it could help in some cases. I think sales reps, they go to the companies where they believe they have a shot to win, or they have a shot to make a commission check, and to a company where they believe they can sell the product, where they stand behind the product. At least this is what good sales reps do. They're also sales reps, they go to any company that gives them a job, but good sales reps are very selective, so you have to do a lot of convincing. They want to know that the executive team, the leadership team is standing behind them, supporting them, because a good sales rep knows without the support from the leadership team, they're not going to be successful. So yeah, you have to do a lot of talking. We're actually hiring some very senior sales people. They're not even sales leaders, but they will be making a lot of money, and it takes a lot of convincing. It takes months to convince them to join the company. But these are the type of people, the seniority that you need at some point Not early on, but at some point you may need these people. And yeah, it's a lot of talking and convincing them that they will get the support and that they are being enabled and also empowered to make decisions.
Carmen, do you have anything to add on that?
I think it's extremely difficult to find somebody good for a startup to hire, unless as a CEO or founder you know that person and they want to work with you, which is a different situation. But otherwise, it's very, very hard because you don't have money to pay them. Options, indeed, it's a solution, but not so much. Depends on how much do you want to give them. It's extremely hard, in my opinion. Good luck. That's all.
Thank you.
I think one advice I would give is trying to find partners, channel partners, because that might be an easier way to get some sales ramped up, pay partners high commissions, or give them other types of benefits that makes it lucrative for them to promote your product and get some sales cycles going. And then you might be able to support these channel partners with some less experienced sales reps that are easier to find. But really do let the partners do the heavy lifting, finding independent partners in certain countries. But yeah, I agree. It's not finding sales reps, good sales reps. It's an art for sure.
Tough luck then. Yeah. Well, sadly, I see we're kind of running out of time. So I wanted to say thank you for joining us this afternoon and for providing this really insightful level of information and fun level of information as well. So thank you. And thank you to you too.